We do have someone do our lawn.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
That's very...
Because we're never up there.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
So
I was going to say, that's not very lesbian of you.
Oh, I would love to do my lawn. Don't get me wrong. Just put on some headphones. Oh no, that sounds like a blast.
You're on Midnight Local, the podcast from How to Drink, where we just talk about things,
movies,
pop culture,
maybe some video games.
That too. All the things.
The stuff and things.
All of the stuff and the things on Midnight Local.
Let's get to it.
Meredith, we're talking about the D&D movie today. I'm Greg.
And I'm Meredith.
So if you happen to be watching the podcast this week instead of listening to it, I know some of you do, you might notice that we're not in the studio together. We are remote recording. I'm at home. Meredith's at home. And why is that? It's because my kids got incredibly sick, and I cannot subject any human into coming over to my home where we record this at. So we're going to try this out.
I hear it's been working for some people, so I think we can make it happen.
I think so. I think it's here to stay. I think that people are going to be able to use video chat. I think the video phone has arrived. I don't know. What do you think?
This gosh darn technology, we're using it. We're going to lose all interaction. Human interactions out the window.
You want to know something crazy? This is how long
Sure.
I held out so long on getting a cell phone. I held out until I met my wife.
That is actually crazy. What year was that?
2008.
Okay, so you just jumped right into the phone era.
She told me if I don't get a cell phone, we're not going to be able to date.
That was a reasonable demand for her to make.
Yeah. I had a scrap of paper that she had written "call me" and her phone number on that I carried in my wallet, and I would call her from landlines for a while.
She's getting like collect calls from Greg. Will you accept this call?
Yeah, sure. I'd make a collect call when I
stop by a payphone.
Sure. I used payphones. I was a really long holdout on the cell phone stuff, and didn't have them. And I don't know why that was. I just didn't want to talk to people.
Welcome to the cell phone trend. And now I guess we've joined the remote work trend. So
video phone. I've gone from cell phones to video phones. Look at what's going on here. I'm going to stop calling it FaceTime. I'm just going to call it the video phone. Like it's 1987.
Right. It's not a smartphone. One of those video phones.
Yeah. Well, you remember in the early 80s, in the early to mid 80s, it was like video telephones are coming. Where you can see the person you're on the phone with. You know, you went down to Epcot.
Always.
Yeah. So now we have the video phone.
I think of Romy and Michelle's when the future.
Never saw that. Yeah.
You never seen Romy and Michelle's?
No.
There's a great video phone moment. But it's not a phone. It's like a whole device they have to wheel into a room in the future. I won't spoil it for you. It's a fantastic movie. I've noticed with this movie, we kind of are hopping between current movies on our list and 80s movies. So at some point we'll have to do some 90s and early aughts and stuff like that.
And we should do some stuff from all the eras, really. I think we should.
60s and 70s.
All of the eras. I just have a hunch that our audience is real into stuff from those time frames, what's happening now, and the 80s. Just a hunch. I don't know why. And that we should hook them. We got to hook them with the stuff they like, and then we can slip them a little pre-code, a little noir. We can slide them in there. We can start talking about some of that old school, that good cut stuff. But we're not talking about any of those today. We're going to talk about the new Dungeons and Dragons movie. 2023. What's the subtitle on this? It was Honor Amongst Thieves, I think.
Honor Amongst Thieves, yeah.
Yeah.
So some of the baseline, it's PG-13, 2 hours, 14 minutes.
Yep.
And I'm finding it, like what I'm wanting to talk about, sometimes the budget is important. So I'm just going to say 150 million for this one.
Big fat piece of cash.
So 2 pretty newish directors. They're like a writer-director team.
Okay.
So John Francis Daley, who was in Freaks and Geeks, and then you are not a Bones watcher, I would imagine, but he also is sweets on Bones, but he quit or left that show to write more.
I'm looking him up.
And it led to this. So good move on him.
Oh, yeah. John Francis Daly. Now there's a kid who knows his way around at D&D.
Yeah. And Jonathan Goldstein, his seems like writing partner. They wrote Spider-Man Homecoming and Horrible Bosses. And then they directed a movie called Game Night, which I've heard is underrated. I've never seen it.
Yeah, I don't know that one.
And now Dungeons and Dragons.
Okay. Oh, wow. They did Horrible Bosses together. Did you see that one?
I haven't.
I don't recall, like, I'm not going to say it's a good movie or a smart movie or anything like that, but I do recall laughing my ass off at that movie.
Okay.
Yeah, I do recall it being fucking hilarious.
They're trying to murder their bosses, right?
Yep.
I mean,
they have
seems like a winner probably for most
three people with truly horrible bosses, and they gotta kill them. I don't know why they can't just quit their jobs. They gotta kill their bosses.
Maybe I'll get into that one.
Yeah.
I like John Francis Daly because he was Sweets on Bones. We've watched
Got it.
lots of Bones in this house. Is that one of our background procedurals?
Gotcha. Word. I was just gonna say that the thing about that movie did change my perceptions about people in general.
Horrible Bosses did?
Yes, because there's a throwaway line in it where like they realize like we can't kill our bosses ourselves. We're not experts. I mean, we don't clean our own apartments. Like you hire people for that. Like let's hire someone to kill people. And the way the line was said, it was not meant to be like, oh, what's the word I'm looking for here? It wasn't meant to be like a
self-aware
accusation. Like the characters weren't supposed to look like privileged or pampered or whatever because they had hired cleaning persons for like it was just like, yeah, you don't clean your home. Like that's what relatively like middle class, you don't have to be super like that's just regular people shit. I'll tell you something. That changed my perceptions a lot. That one stupid line. Like I was like, oh, everybody's out here just getting maids. That's like normal. That's not like fucking rich people shit. That's just like regular people shit. Didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah, I guess it's not the most costly thing in the world to have help cleaning your home.
It's not the cheapest either. I don't know.
That's true.
I also I tip excessively. So that's like one of my problems with that, because like I can't not. I'm a little. I think I tip excessively. Maybe I'm a really stingy bastard.
You find out they leave your house like that guy.
That guy, like every other house on the block, is slipping 100 in my palm, and that dude, Jesus Christ. Maybe we could talk about that. So I've got. I do have some cleaners that come. They come with a crew of like 4 people. They're in and out of here in like an hour and a half.
It's pretty good.
I put $10 in each of their hands. You know, is that good? Is that shit?
There you go. Yeah. Poll the audience.
We'll
do a community tab post. Oh, you're asking me if that's good.
I need to know if I'm doing a good job here right now. I need
$10 each for an hour, and they're getting paid. It's not like
that's just a tip. That's on top.
How much does the cleaning cost, or do you not want to disclose that?
It's $130, I think.
And so you're giving a $40 tip essentially.
Yeah. Well, sometimes they come with a crew of 5. You know, one thing I've noticed is since I've started doing that, they keep coming with bigger crews. So
yeah, sure.
I think it's pretty okay.
I honestly don't know. I've never had a cleaner, so
yes,
I don't know. Oh, growing up, not the one that I paid.
Oh.
Not since I've been an adult.
Okay. Fair enough. There's something I want to ask you, but I also don't want to expose you.
Why I don't pay for a cleaner?
Didn't you? Oh shit, Mary, we can cut this out if this is awful for me to ask. Didn't you once tell me that your mom paid for your cleaner in the city? Or did I invent it?
She offered to, but we never took her up on it. But yes, no, that is true. She did offer that. I think for a while when we were living,
took her up on that. Got it.
Yeah, we were living at the 8th Street apartment. We were home so little that there were like weeks where it was like, what's the point of this? We've barely been in our apartment. I don't know. It just never seemed necessary. We don't have kids. yet.
Dude. Oh,
So
my
that's a
God.
big game changer there. I think when we have kids, it'll be something we consider, but we don't have kids.
I'm going to, just to put a pin in this, like half the value of having like the cleaners coming is that we have to clean up.
Right. Yeah.
Like, you can't just have the cleaners come in and put your kids' toys away. I can't do it. Like, it just forces us to clean up first. We have to clean for the cleaners.
Yeah. In a 1-bedroom apartment, it feels a little crazy to not be able to put some things away.
Nah, that's a little excessive, especially if you don't have kids. Like, you just have to clean up after yourself.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. When you have the kids, it changes.
At the house, sometimes we wish we had it, but resources are hard to find up there. We do have someone do our lawn.
Oh, wow. Really?
Yeah.
That's very...
Because we're never up there.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Fair enough.
So
I was going to say, that's
it's
not very lesbian of you.
Oh, I would love to do my lawn. Don't get me wrong. Just put on some headphones. Oh no, that sounds like a blast.
You got to get the ride on. Get the ride on mower, man.
Yeah, that sounds awesome.
I'm moving. I'm getting a robot, I think. I'm going to get like the lawn Roombas.
Ooh, I did not know
so.
that existed.
Yeah, man. That's it now.
I thought this was like dad's like time to just like not deal with the kids. Oh, I got to mow the lawn. In my sister's neighborhood, I feel like those guys mow their lawns every day.
Yeah,
You're not that guy.
I mean, I'll mow the lawn if it's no other way to get it done, but like I got shit to do. Like, and I'm already not dealing with the kids a lot, so I don't need any more time away from them.
I don't need to come up with reasons. I have reasons.
Yeah, I'm pretty busy.
All right, let's talk a little bit about this movie.
Okay,
maybe.
so let's talk about that was a good banter. This light, I've never do this. Like, this lighting is not for this position, right? And now it's just like, it's really panding. I look very tired. I am very tired.
It is above your head. You want to fill this way. Push everything up.
I could underlight like I was
Mine
like a villain in like a 90s movie, just like have it come up from my chin. That's all right. I can't really.
We will perfect. If we stick with remote work, we'll perfect.
I think we should be equipped for it at
visuals.
any rate. Yeah.
Yeah, clearly.
But when we move, I'm going to rebuild this whole rig. Anyway.
Looking for a 2-bedroom little office nook, hoping to have a permanent podcasting space.
We should just rename this episode to Domestic Life with Greg and Mary.
How did D&D lead to the conversation about this? I guess he starts the movie in his domestic life. Well, he starts in prison, but then he tells us the story about his domestic life.
So spoilers, by the way, we're going to talk about the new D&D movie, and there will be spoilers because we're talking about the movie and we can't do it in vagaries. Well, I just want to know what you think.
I had fun. I thought it was really fun. I think that I've been really let down. Not that I had high hopes, but I've been let down by MCU Phase 4 at every turn.
Yeah.
And I feel like this at least had, I don't know. I had me laughing. It had me really pulling for the characters. I felt like Chris Pine, what's his character's name? Edgin?
Let's pull up IMDb because I'm never going to remember.
Yeah.
He's Chris Pine.
Yeah, Chris Pine. They give you a really simple story, easy to root for. He's trying to bring his wife back to life. He's trying to reconnect with his estranged child.
Yep.
Got it. So, but I will say the stakes are very low for me because I am not a D&D player. I didn't grow up playing the game. I don't really have a lot of expectations here. I get to kind of come in as a blank slate.
Right. Yeah, Edgin is his name, Edgin. Or possibly Edgin. I don't really remember.
I think it's probably Edgin.
I think it's Edgin. Yeah.
You and I both have this problem. It'll take me 10 times watching a movie or TV show before I could tell you characters' names.
Sometimes, yeah. Especially if it's a well-known actor. If it's not, then I'll know the characters' names right away.
Yeah, it takes me a while.
Like, I don't know why I know why, because I want to compare this to other PG-13 movies I like. And I think about, like, who's in Adventures in Babysitting? Who's the main character? Well, the main character is Elizabeth Shue.
Yes. As babysitter.
Yes, Elizabeth Shue is babysitting these actors and they go on a wild adventure together. No. So you had fun. I have a lot of thoughts about this movie. A lot of them, there's like a bunch of different ways for me to look at this movie, right? There's like the let's look at it as a movie, and then there's the it's a D&D movie.
Sure.
I don't know. How do you want me to unpack all that? And do you want me to just like start talking and you can tell me when to stop?
It's a good question with this one because it's like it's an interesting one to talk about because for me it's a Marvel movie and for you it's D&D.
No, it is a Marvel movie. I totally agree with that. It's a lot like it is basically a Marvel movie, and that's what they're going for. They want to start a DCU, like a D and DDU. I don't know what they're going to call it, but like yeah, obviously like they're trying to do their own D&D but Marvel.
But if they turned Buffy the Vampire Slayer into a Marvel movie, if they made her that big of a superhero, like
Right.
I would have a really hard time with that. So yeah, I can understand how for you probably have a very different reaction to this movie.
Let me tell you about how I felt about it as a movie.
Sure.
So it's what I have said a couple of times is it's a PG-13 movie, and it is. It's written for a 13-year-old. Like that was my thing. So for me, as a something-year-old, it was. These are 99% of these jokes I have seen 100 times before. So they don't land for me. They just don't. I've seen these character archetypes before. I'm not that invested in them. Like I just kind of can't be. It doesn't really work. I've seen these relationship dynamics before. I have a hard time getting invested in that. Like for me, it's a very surfacey film. That said, I recognize that if I saw this movie when I was 13 years old, I would have fucking loved it. I would be watching it. I'd get the fucking VHS and me and my friends would watch it probably every single weekend with a giant bag of Twizzlers and a Coke. And then we'd play Super Nintendo and we'd love it. So it's hard for me to but on a personal note, in a subjective sense, I didn't love it. There were a couple of things I really liked about it and a couple of moments that I thought connected, but
Yeah. Have you seen Guardians of the Galaxy?
I liked the first one. Yeah.
So it's like almost the exact dynamics, like the setup of characters are almost exactly the same.
What I liked about the first Guardians though is that it was exceedingly dark. Like the first Guardians movie is just like dripping in angsty pathos, but wrapping it in this like hyper pop bubblegum, like 70s rock vibe. But like the movie opens in a haunted house. Like the beginning of the movie, he's walking through a dead city, seeing the ghosts of children everywhere. Like that movie from frame 1 till the end is about dead shit. Like it's all hidden. Like it's all kind of subtexty. I would not call it subtext, but I would say it's like just below the surface. That's a bleak fucking movie. And I was very interested in that juxtaposition and interplay. And I thought that was a lot of fun what they were playing with there. That's really what I loved about that movie.
Because he's just like listening to his music and dancing through it.
Yeah. Like the whole, I mean, it's like the whole thing is a dance macabre. Like, you know,
sure.
The whole movie and that's exactly right. Like they set that up right at the beginning. And it keeps going. It keeps going like that. I thought that was a lot of fun. And on top of that, like there was some funny characters and great, you know, the people in it were good. Not that the people in this were bad. I don't know. It just didn't really click for me that hard. I should also, full disclosure, the reason I went to see this in the theater because I was never actually excited about it. I don't know if that's something I'm supposed to say. This is the first movie I have seen in a movie theater in about 5 years. I think that the last movie I saw in the movie theater, Toy Story 4.
I saw that in the theater too.
I think that's literally the last movie I saw in the theater. I'm almost certain of it. And before that, it was La La Land.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's a while back.
Yeah. So Mrs. Had a Drink doesn't like going to the movies very much. She actually has like serious anxiety issues with them ever since that dude shot up the theater in Colorado. Amongst other theater shootings, I think, as well.
Sure. That's reasonable.
Yeah. It's really hard to get her to go to the theater. And also there was a pandemic. So like that was for a lot of reasons. Anyway, I went because I got an email from somebody who was a fan of How to Drink. And they were living, they lived in Belfast, which I guess is where they did a lot of the exteriors or whatever of this film. And he said, listen, I got friendly with the production design crew. and we were hanging out a lot, and I turned him onto your show, and the bar, the tavern where they spent so much time in, the sign outside in, and I don't remember the name, the script of Fey Run, whatever the language is for that Fey Run is written in, it translates to Greg's Grog. And apparently, like, they told me that he tells me that the tavern is named after me. And I thought that was fucking insane. I also thought, like, boy, if that's true, we got to go do an episode on it, but I had to confirm it. And I figured I would go to the movie, confirm that, or that it's there at least, and then put it to the audience as a question. And then also do some drinks based on, like, well, what is Greg's Grog? And then also, like, I figured there'd be potions in it. Very offended. Nobody's looking out for me over there at D&D because there's not a single goddamn potion in this D&D movie for me to adapt. How do you make a D&D movie without one magic potion in it? Come on, guys. I don't know. I got kids to feed over here. You can't do that to me. That's fucked
true.
Up, man.
You got to do you got to do Jello shots with the gelatin cubes. That's all you got.
Oh,
that's all they gave you.
The gelatinous cube. Yeah.
Gelatinous cube. Yeah.
Yeah. It's a classic monster. It goes way back. One of the things that the movie didn't show is that it can shoot coins and stuff. So like as it
shoots things out of it.
Yeah. As it like slurps its way along a dungeon floor, it'll pick up like coins and shoot them like a gun.
Yikes.
That's goofy shit. So yeah, that's my general opinion. I will say, and I don't know if I should say this for later or not because it happens at the very end of the movie. This movie did have one beat in it that I actually truly loved.
Can I guess?
Yeah, go ahead.
The graveyard scene.
No, I thought that was funny. I did enjoy that, and I was shocked by how long it went on for. But I dug that. No, but the very end of the movie when he, this is a huge spoiler, but when Michelle Rodriguez, what is her character's name? Holga. When Holga has died, and him and his daughter have to decide, Kira, we're going to use the tablet to resurrect her instead of the mom. And he has this realization and the exact line that I was like, oh, that's good. You know, I realized I wasn't trying to resurrect your mom. I was trying to resurrect my wife, and that the right thing for him to do for his daughter is to resurrect Holga. The one thing about that to me is that, like, I had, by that point in the movie, I'd kind of forgotten that Holga was Kira's adopted mom. But of course, in retrospect, I was like, oh, that's right. Like, she never even met her mom.
Right, exactly. Well, and someone else says to him in the movie, like, you know, your wife has been where she is. Like, death is a new beginning, and she's been where she is for a really long time, and you're going to rip her out of that place. At that point, I was like, this is going to play in. And then the second second Holga died, I was like, got it.
Yes.
Yeah, but I agree. It was a good beat.
Whoever, I don't remember his name, the guy who was the very annoying paladin he was obnoxious.
What is a paladin?
It's a class. It's a class in D&D. They're like, some people call them Boy Scouts, but like, they're just like super duper. So their alignment in traditional form would have to be lawful good, which means that, like, and they take an oath to be extra lawful good. Traditionally, it's a little different in 5e. And that means that they like cannot deviate like from being extra super duper lawful good. In AD&D, if they deviated from their alignment, they lost all of their powers. So like, they were on a super rail of just being extra awesome, goody goody two shoes, obnoxious dork. So like, his character was a very much an AD&D joke, because in 5th edition, paladins just kind of like make a swear to a specific like creed, and then they have to adhere to that creed. But like, I don't think that 5th edition can punish a player character for like failing to adhere to that creed where it would just take away like stuff off your character sheet. In AD&D, it was just like, yeah, you're just like not a paladin anymore. You just like lose all those class levels. Good luck.
Got it. I understand about
I know
10% of what you just said.
Yeah.
I would love to play D&D someday, but
we should do
we
should do it
as soon as the opportunity arises. I think it would be really fun.
It would be like, you know how Buffy's got all those powers, right? She's like a slayer. She's not just like she's got powers, right? She's like super powered.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Okay.
She's super strong. She can't like fly or anything, but yeah.
Yeah. It would be like if the minute she fucked Spike, she immediately lost all of those powers because she like was cavorting with a vampire.
Got it.
Yeah. And it would be very bad for a player character too, because he'd like spent like forever building this guy up, and then it's just like gone. you know?
Oh, wow. Okay. And it doesn't come back. It's gone.
It's like real hard to get it back. Like you have to
Sure,
go on some
okay.
like super duper quest. But anyway, like that whole thing about her being in like another place, that's extremely specific to Dungeons and Dragons and specifically Faerun. Obviously, like lots of people here on the planet Earth believe that, like, you know, there, you go to an afterlife. I don't, but a lot of people believe that. But in Dungeons and Dragons, particularly in Faerun, you specifically go to Sigil, the city of doors, and like there are actual like physical afterlives, you know, that you
Right.
go to. They are there. And a possibility is that when you go to resurrect somebody, they have to agree.
Yeah, and they somewhat allude to that. Yeah,
Yeah.
which I got. So I got the feeling with this movie that like it was also having to dance this fine line about not getting too into the weeds,
Oh yeah.
but leaving enough of a trail there so that true fans could like get something deeper out of it.
Yeah.
But I still like, so I understood what they were saying about her being in another place
Yes.
that she might want to be, but you as a fan of the game would have taken so much more out of that moment than I could have.
There's a specific place. Yeah, it's not just like
Yeah.
a platitude. It's like no, she's like got a job. Like she's probably working in like a bakery or something. you know?
Sure. Okay. And so what I'm like reading from fans mostly is that they appreciate that was achieved as well as it was. They
Yeah.
felt like they didn't get abandoned completely, but they kept the story understandable for newcomers.
Yeah, I think well, I think that it was definitely something that you don't need to know a goddamn thing about Dungeons and Dragons to watch this movie.
Yeah.
Like that's fact. You don't. Every single thing that you would, it's immaterial. And it really, like, that's the thing. So this for me is not a Dungeons and Dragons movie. Like, it's just not, because Dungeons and Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game. A Dungeons and Dragons movie to me would be about people playing D&D. This was a Faerun movie. And the reason I'm specifying that is because, like, so Dungeons and Dragons is a set of numerical rules that tell you how to play the game. There is suggested setting information in the sidebars. When you look in the Monstrous Manual, it will tell you examples of goblin culture and lifestyle and where they might live, but they are just examples. And usually they are pulled from one of a few specific campaign settings. So a campaign setting is like a fantasy world that you might run your D&D game in. And this one is Faerun, which is the Forgotten Realms, right? And the Forgotten Realms is like a super duper popular campaign setting. I think in 5th edition, I think it is the default campaign setting. In 1 edition, it was I don't know if it ever was before, to be honest.
Quick question, quick interlude.
Yeah.
Campaign settings so you can make your own or choose from like a book of options. Is that right?
That's right. And you have to go buy that book. Like, you don't just like get the information about Faerun when you buy the 3 core books for D&D. Like, that information's not in there specifically. You have to go and get the Gazetteer, or the whatever they call it now, the book that tells you everything about Faerun, where the cities are, who runs them, like if you want to really run that game. So my friends and I growing up, we never used a campaign setting. To me, that was always like, well, that's for people who like want to play on easy mode or something. Like, we just wrote our own worlds.
You made your own.
The only campaign setting we ever played in was like the first time I ever played D&D. My friend who introduced me to the game ran a game in Dark Sun. And it was like a one-shot, like pre-gen adventure. And I was a Thri-Kreen fighter, for those of you who want to know. It's like a 4-armed giant praying mantis man. But like, other than that, like, we just made our own up because that's what you were supposed to do. But like, there was Mystara was an early campaign setting. There was Greyhawk. There was Dragonlance. There was the Forgotten Realms. There was Spelljammer. There was Planescape. There was Dark Sun, which I mentioned. Like, what are we up to, 6 or 7?
Yeah.
So the idea that the D&D movie happens in Forgotten Realms kind of rubs me the wrong way. Like, if they had just called it a Forgotten Realms adventure, I think it wouldn't have bothered me so much.
Okay. But they've got to use the IP that is going to sell the most tickets.
I think you could do both. I think you could call it Dungeons and Dragons adventure, and Honor Amongst Thieves, a Forgotten Realms D&D. I'm not, I don't work in the marketing department, but I just put it in there to identify, because then of course you could do a Dark Sun movie as well at some point.
It sounds like they will sort of. Well, I don't know if they will. We'll see if it makes more money, but I think their idea was probably to be able to.
Well, it's a multiverse.
Roll this out in different branches and multiverse, and you could make a whole MCU just out of D&D universe.
Oh, absolutely. You could.
But then you're right. Like, you don't call it MCU Doctor Strange, right? You start.
I don't know what you do.
Like, the big header of everything doesn't need to be the title of every movie. Yeah. Calling it Dungeons and Dragons, is the next one going to be Dungeons of Dragons, ?
Well, they're going to stick with Forgotten Realms. Forgotten Realms is the very popular campaign setting for most stuff. But what's interesting is that they do have meta campaign settings. Two of them that I mentioned, like Forgotten Realms, Planescape and Spelljammer, specifically are campaign settings that are designed to connect all of the other campaign settings together.
I do love the names of things in D&D, like Owlbear.
An Owlbear, yeah. Those are old school.
I liked Intellect Devourers. It's just like, this is what it is. Intellect
Devourers, yeah. Those gross little dogs, yeah.
Yeah.
Those little brain dogs.
Little brain dogs, yeah. I was very on the nose namings of things.
Some things, yeah. I mean, you might be a little pressed to figure out what a Neo-G is, but that's, whatever.
Sure.
Yeah.
Sure.
They're bad dudes, but or an Arakakra, which I've never been a fan of that. Yeah, it's like another, just like I've self-described myself as a grognard, and I've been informed to not do that. So to me, grognard just meant it's a term that meant old gamer, guy who's been around since an earlier edition. Apparently, in recent years, it now means Nazi gamer. So
yeah, I could see how it got there.
Yeah, just racist old misogynist, which I'm not. So I don't remember.
I like things the old way.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
But like in a negative way. But I think that there was somebody I saw on TikTok who was like, I want to use the word Garys, or I forget what it was, to describe what we used to call grognards, since we've lost that word. But like, yeah, I mean, there is just like in general, like D&D, the 5th edition has kind of left me behind in some ways, particularly the way like the setting and stuff is the way that other players expect the setting to work. In other words, has kind of left me behind.
Well, I was just a question that I was thinking as you were talking about. So if this isn't if Dungeons and Dragons, the movie, would be about people playing Dungeons and Dragons, is Stranger Things a Dungeons and Dragons story to you?
For me, it's much more so. Yeah.
I like I mean, it's much darker. It's much, but it is like, because now knowing that the final baddie they're building up to is the final baddie in Dungeons and Dragons, yes?
No, they just use the name because the kids don't. So the kids use, for all like the Demogorgon and the Mind Flayer, they don't know what to call things, so they call things from D&D. But the thing in that in the Stranger Things that they call a Mind Flayer is nothing like a Mind Flayer.
But what about the big guy with all the stuff growing out of him? I thought that was like very directly tied to Dungeons and Dragons.
No, they just call it the Mind Flayer because it's like the big bad in any campaign might be a Mind Flayer, which is a real bad dude.
I see.
Actually, the Mind Flayer has a lot more to do with that Intellect Devourer dude. So Mind Flayer is typically like an 8-foot tall, lanky humanoid with very powerful psionic powers, with a big squid for a head, and it's got tentacles on its mouth, and it eats your brain. It grabs onto your head and it eats your brain. But it's also like a super genius. Like it's a super genius plotter. Like you do a campaign against the Mind Flayer, you're dealing with like, the weird cultists and gangs and everything that he has kind of working in his employ.
Right.
Forever,
and that's what that he's. Yeah. In the last season that we saw, spoiler alert.
Yeah, you realize that he is kind of the monster pulling all these strings. So
exactly.
In that way, it's the Mind Flayer. That's why they're saying that, yeah.
But that feels much more like a D&D story. Like this adventure is building around them instead of sort of the set path of things to do. Yes.
I don't know. I'm not sure I follow what you're saying, but I will confer that for me, a lot about Stranger Things feels a lot more D&D than this movie did, but this movie had a lot more D&D lip service in it, like with specific
Sure.
spells and character archetypes and like player classes and stuff like that being directly referenced.
Got it.
Which I'm not in love with that, but okay, fine. Like I said, I would have loved this movie when I was 13.
Yeah.
Absolutely loved it. I would have adored it. It's just that, like, I am bad at like putting on my 13-year-old hat and just like letting go, and enjoying stuff in that way. I'm just like, I'm just dead inside. I think I just have an emptiness in my heart.
Is there anything that helps you put on that hat? See, I feel like movies like this help me get into that space a little bit where I can let the outside world go for a minute and just be 13.
Oh, no. Like for me, like I lose myself in, you know what I'm like? Yeah. The thing that makes me feel the most like I was 13 is like Perry Mason on HBO, which is extremely serious, very heavy, very R-rated, very dry, not dry, but like, mature. And the reason is that like I relate to that media as being very serious and very engrossing in the same emotional way that a 13-year-old Greg would have related to this D&D movie, which is very serious, very engrossing. Like I would have been, you know what I'm saying? Like it plucks the same version of that string now. To go back to that, it has to be either something I grew up with or like maybe just in the right mood or whatever, or like really dumb. Or,
yeah. I mean,
really
like,
dumb is good. Intentionally dumb works.
A different version of like being 13 again. I guess like another way I was thinking about it is like sometimes you're in the mood for a complicated drink. Like I don't know, what's a complicated drink you can think of, something that's elevated that requires a refined
Queen's Park
palate.
Swizzle takes about as much work as I'll ever get in. Oh, you mean like flavor profile wise?
Yeah, like like something bitter, like a Boulevardier or something like that. You're not going to drink all the time.
I was not going to reach for that. That's a good example. Thank you for letting me off.
So sometimes you're in the mood for that, and sometimes you're in the mood for like a frozen margarita or pina colada.
Sure. If I'm like, making the drinks, I'm only ever in the mood for the thing that is easiest to make that will make everybody else happy.
Okay. Yes, that's not this analogy. Stick with me. We're in a very narrow thing here. So, to me, this is a pina colada. This is easy, sweet, just fun.
I'm not in the, yes. I guess when I'm in the mood for that, though, I would watch Crybaby, or I would watch Eating Raoul, or I would watch
why
not? That's what I don't know. That's what clicks for me. That's what connects for me.
Sure.
Like it's just, it works good for me. I don't know. Like this is like it just doesn't click for me. I don't know. It's not,
there's no like this is candy sort of aspect for it for you.
No.
It's not really fun for you to watch.
Not really, no. Not really.
Yeah.
I'm just like, okay. Like it was kind of work to get through.
Yeah, sure.
There were moments that I laughed, but I laughed because they were bad.
See, and I thought it was great. I thought like the mirror falling on the ground. Like I was so in it at that point. Like it was a lot of little problem solving and very clever. Like trapdoors and things like that. So
here's a question. When was the last time Hugh Grant didn't play the bad guy in a movie? Because I feel like that's his deal now. He just plays like, you see Hugh Grant, he's the bad guy. That's what I'm thinking. Like, Four Weddings and a Funeral, Notting Hill. Back when he was still a kind of a heartthrob, right?
Yeah. Before actually, I might cut this because I don't know if it's true, but before he cheated on his wife.
Yes, he did. And actually I was actually going to bring that up, and like how now because at the time it was in the 90s, and I thought what I was told for the most part as a young man. I was very young, and I think I was probably in middle school when that happened. I don't remember what year that was actually. I just remember being young. But like a big thing about it that might be lost on you is that he was caught having intercourse in the car with a trans hooker. I'm sorry, I can't say hooker anymore. Trans sex worker. And I want to pause on that, by the way, too. I think that the fact that sex worker has become the only acceptable term at this point, right? I think so, right? You're not supposed to say prostitute or whatever. I think that's like prostitute erasure. I'm sure there are people who are upset about that, but like, there's a lot of different kinds of sex workers. Maybe we need to be more specific, you know? I don't think that a person working in a cat house is doing the same job as a cam girl or whatever who's got an OnlyFans. They're different jobs. I think it's okay. I don't know what I'm missing about that. Like, prostitute's not a bad word. It's a statement of facts.
Yeah,
But
I don't know. I don't know any, so I can't speak to their
I don't know either.
sensitivities.
I don't know either.
Yeah.
I got to tell you something. I bet they're not the most sensitive people.
I think it's
think
more
you go into that
so
work
that
when you got some thick skin.
I think it's more so that people take it seriously as work.
I agree with that. I think it
Yeah.
is work, and I totally agree with that. I just think I saw something recently. I was on a TikTok. It was a creator who I felt like had some skin in this game. And it was just like they were saying, and a lot of people were agreeing. I think these were, if I'm not mistaken, these people were black. And they were like, yeah, all of this shit where you can't say this or whatever, that's white women who don't know how else to deal with their like uselessness in the cause. Like they just got to change the names of shit.
I think that's possible. It's like, I am an ally because I say
I
sex
changed the
worker.
name. I decided. Yeah, exactly.
I respect the right way to say this. Yeah, I think there's a lot
I
of
am
that going
just as
around with
involved in this
semantics
fight
right now.
as you.
I think there's that applies to many communities at this point.
I'm important. Center me.
Yeah.
No, but I don't know though. Maybe there is a huge outrage about that. And if, you know, I'm always like,
We can be educated.
always, I'm always, but I want to hear it from the people who, if you got skin in the game and you say, Greg, don't call me that. I'm like, oh, okay, fine. Got it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like,
Oh,
but if some
absolutely.
third party person says, you know, that's not what we
That's
say
not what
anymore.
you should do.
Yeah, that's not what we say anymore. And I'm like, this is what you do for a living? No, but that's not what we're saying. Okay, fuck you. I don't give a shit. Your opinion
Need
means
to hear
nothing
it from
me.
the source, directly from the source material.
Kinda. Yeah, kinda. A little bit. Yes. I don't want to.
I agree with that.
Yeah. I don't know. I wouldn't. Anyway, this is a little off topic for the D&D
It is off
movie.
topic. Yeah, a little bit. Here we go. You know, I can bring us back on topic.
Bring me
I
on
have no
topic.
segue though. This is gonna be a
Do a hard
cold
cut.
transition.
Well, we'll go to commercial.
So I did notice while I was watching this movie that I felt like it was more tangible than most like big budget franchise CG movies that I've seen lately. So I went digging into that a little bit and did find that like, especially for the dragons and a lot of the characters, there was a lot more puppetry used
Really?
in this movie. Yeah. Like a lot of the dragons,
How many
they were
dragons
acting
were
against
there?
puppets. There was like the big guy at the end. There were
The big fat
two or
dragon.
three. Yeah, there was the one that like spit rocks.
Oh,
At
no.
one
That was
point-
acid. That was the
Oh, it was
black
acid.
dragon.
I literally thought it was rocks.
I didn't like how thick they made that look, but whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a black dragon. Black dragon spit acid instead of fire.
Good to know.
Yeah.
And I did. I felt like the locations were more tangible. Like there was less clear green screen locations. Like one thing that was driving us nuts about.
They might have used a lot of virtual sets.
Yeah. Well, so and I think they shot a bunch of stuff on location, but even the graveyard scene, like
Yeah.
I have to look into I miss DVD extras so much. I was
too.
searching for like
Me too.
their special effects BTS stuff
Yep.
all over the internet today, and it is not easy to find. Man, do I miss that stuff.
Me too. That was film school, before film school.
Yeah, absolutely.
There was a show on the Discovery Channel when it was actually educational, when I was in like middle and high school, called Movie Magic, if I'm not mistaken. And it was just like a weekly show. I never missed it. There were so few shows I like never missed. I never missed this show that was just behind the scenes, how we made this movie show. It was awesome. Loved that show.
But I was happy to hear. I see, and this is now I need to go searching for this. I didn't search specifically for the graveyard scene, but that scene felt so tangible to me. Like not as tangible as Return of the Living Dead, but I immediately thought of Return of the Living Dead.
They probably were puppets. I mean, if you're selling, that's a scene you would definitely use puppets for. If you're using puppets in the movie, that's a scene you'd use them for.
and it felt like it. So I think that is a triumph here for sure.
I agree. I would say that none of the special effects immediately took me out of the scene. That's true.
Yeah.
I'm down with that.
Check in the okay
Check.
column.
Yeah, I mean, it was good at that. I don't know. The whole for me too though is that like, okay, I think that there's no way that you're going to see a Dungeons and Dragons movie that's not a cartoonish, fun romp, like a comedy romp. Like there's no way you're going to see that. But that ain't how me and my friends ever played D&D. We were never planning for comedy. You find like comedy happens like on its own, and those moments
like
are fine.
when you're hanging out with your friends, comedy happens, but you're not like actively trying to act out comedy at each other.
But like I'm from like a generation of players where it was like there was nothing worse than the player who showed up with like the joke character who tried to make a joke character. Like, get the fuck out of the table. Get out of the table. It's like when I used to play Vampire the Masquerade, which is a role playing game where you're vampires, and it's interesting. Yeah, it's fun. The guy who always wanted to play the Malkavian, get out of the table. Get away. Malkavian, by the way, Meredith, you don't know this, but they're crazy. They have mental illness. And it would always just be somebody who wanted to play it real goofy as opposed to a person who actually had paranoid schizophrenia. Like, just play it straight, you know?
Isn't this kind of, though, like the Critical Role brand of Dungeons and Dragons? Yeah. So there's a big fan base for really just watching it as entertainment and watching the stories get built by voice actors, right?
Yeah.
Comedians, voice actors, improvers.
Yeah. Although I do want to point out that Critical Role takes place in a campaign setting that Matt Mercer wrote, not in the Forgotten Realms.
Sure. I just meant D&D in general as
the brand. Yeah. I think that 5th edition is meant to be really accessible in that way. Maybe less so than 4th edition in some ways, but whatever. It's just meant to sell books on books on books. And then, and I do think that the big stars of the game right now are for years have been the Critical Role crew and also the D20 crew with Matt, with Brennan, our pal. And I think that they've moved the game into that direction but I don't know that that's what their tables are like that they're running on their own, at home.
Right. Yeah. I know that there's a lot of insider talk about that type of stuff.
I think there's a difference between putting on a show and playing the game for your friends.
Yeah.
I wouldn't actually know because I'm not at those tables. Nobody invites me.
I think,
probably because I'm an obnoxious old grognard.
I feel like, I have one at every table though, right?
I don't think so.
No, wrong. I don't know. I think I'm curious to see how this franchises out because
why?
I'm certain they will make more.
What do you think is, I mean, I'm not
curious I can't wait to see the next movie curious. I'm curious
which way
to
they're
see
going. Which way
if they switch up stories or if it's more of an anthology or if they're going to stick with Chris Pine on his next adventure.
I think it'd be really cool if they made it an anthology. That would actually interest me a lot. That would be very D&D-ish if the next movie was a different campaign setting or different characters or something like that. Yeah, that would be very cool.
Or if they branch out to different campaigns.
They're not going to do that, though. They're going to keep the cast that made the money.
But it didn't make the money.
It didn't? Oh, was it a flop?
Well, yeah, I think comparatively. I know domestically they made 75 million, but internationally they've made 158 million. I guess. Ooh. No, not when you spent 150 to make the film, and that's an estimate.
And
who knows how much over that they are.
Trying to make a Marvel movie that makes
300, 400 million. Yeah. I mean,
ouch, Hasbro, ouch.
Yeah, it's rough. So I think everyone always says I was reading an article. I was looking for articles about franchises because I realized we're probably not going to cover a ton of franchises on the podcast, and this might be an opportunity.
We'll probably cover a lot of movies that started a franchise.
Possibly, but not a franchise like the MCU
No.
or like I don't know, like what is like all of the top grossing movies of last year besides Top Gun Maverick, which isn't technically a franchise.
I wouldn't call it a franchise.
Sequel.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like Black Panther, I guess Avatar is making itself a franchise by the second movie by announcing like 8 new movies coming after it.
Yeah, well, he filmed 4 at once, right?
Yeah, exactly. So Doctor Strange, Jurassic World, Minions, Thor, Spider-Man, Sonic the Hedgehog. I mean,
Sonic's a tough one to call a franchise, but go on. They made 2.
well, but like it is in the same way that Mario Brothers is. It's not the movie that's a franchise.
Right.
It's the
brand,
IP that's a franchise. Yeah. And then you have to go all the way down to like the 12th grossing movie of the year to find Elvis, which is the only movie that's just a movie that's going to stand alone. There probably won't be a sequel.
Well, I mean, there's a huge IP of like decades of collectible plates behind it. So
very true. I mean, it's definitely, but it's a
Franklin Mint coins, and so
it's a biopic. You know, at the end of the day,
that's what I would call a boomer flick. It's for boomers.
Well, did well. So
there's a lot of boomers out there.
And then, you know, this year, same thing. You got Mario Brothers,
Sure.
Ant-Man, John Wick. And then, but then you're starting to see things like Megan break through and like Cocaine Bear break through.
I can't watch that Megan movie.
Why not?
It's fucking that. I can't look at that thing.
It's so good. So far, I've been making a list of the movies I see this year, and it's the top of my list. Is my favorite movie.
I can't look at that thing.
It's so good.
It's like that Battle Angel Alita that came out. Can't look at it. I can't look at that.
Yeah.
Thing. Did you see that one?
No.
It was James Cameron many years ago, but when he was like, I'm not making movies until 3D technology has caught up with where I want it to be.
Still waiting.
Well, no, I mean, he built the technology. He revolutionized making movies in 3 dimensions. It's just that nobody else wanted it but him. So he's like the only like 3D savant, you know, that's his thing. Like Christopher Nolan is like the last dude doing film. That's his deal. He only shoots film. Anyway, but like he said, and when the 3D catches up, I'm going to make 1 or 2 movies, either this thing Avatar I want to do or Battle Angel Alita, which is based on this manga that I really liked. And I guess he like handed Battle Angel off to somebody else and he just kind of produced it. But you know what anime eyes are?
Yeah, big eyes.
Yeah. So Battle Angel Alita is a live action movie with a lot of CG, like a ton of CG. But like they gave the main character anime eyes. I can't look at that movie. I just physically can't.
Really?
It's Uncanny Valley doesn't do that term.
Sure.
Whoa, man. I was like, I can't look at this movie.
That's funny. See, I could see that with something that's like a slight difference like that, but like she's very clearly a robot, you know? So
yeah,
it's not like she's almost human-like. Like she's really not ever almost human-like.
Do me a favor. Just look up Battle Angel. Just look up Alita real quick because I want to know your response.
How do you spell it?
Hold on. I'll find it and then I'll screen share it to you. Perfect. This is the perfect image. Okay. This is what it looks like. And she's also the main character of the movie. So you have to look at her all the fucking time. Look at that. You got to look at that the whole movie. You see that?
Yeah, that's weird. That's you don't get, that's not how Megan looks.
The whole movie. She talks, she walks, she
yeah,
she
I can see how that would be off-putting.
Dude, I can't. It looks like a bad photo.
And everyone's just treating her like she's
normal. This is normal for that world.
Okay,
yeah, exactly.
Got it. Okay.
Absolutely. Can't do it. I can't do it. I'm sorry.
I highly recommend you give it a try.
All right.
Actually, with that movie, I do.
I'll have 4 drinks and then we'll watch
it. Yeah, we'll cover it. We'll wait till Halloween.
Okay.
But anyway, my point just being that like Megan right now is higher domestically grossing than D&D, and
that's brutal. It's a movie I barely even heard about.
I don't know. For 10 years, everybody's been saying we're going to start to slip away from the franchise, and that people's appetites for, like, just like you're saying, the jokes are all the same. Everything's predictable. We've seen it. Like, it's recycled. It's just like we've become numb to it, right?
I think a big part of, like, when I talk to people about what they like about it, these franchises, is the coziness of the parasocial relationship that they have with these fictional characters who they get to come back to again and again and again and again. But I don't think, like, I mean, there's a reason that Murder, She Wrote and Columbo didn't have $100 million budgets. Like, you know, they just, it's like that only goes so far. There's a market for it. And I think that the market peaked for it, but I kind of think that, yeah, exactly. Like, that's what's peaked. The interest in, like, cozy little cuddly pretend friends. And so, like, the budgets are going to return for the justifiable budgets for that kind of content might return to, like, you know, procedural drama television.
Yeah.
And you see kind of the death of these movies.
I think they'll be there. I mean, there's still the last 2 years, the top 15 highest grossing movies are mostly franchised movies.
Don't crush my dreams, Meredith.
But you're seeing it start to peak in. Like, you definitely are. Like, there's nothing to sneeze at with these other movies. Like, Everything Everywhere All at Once made 70 million. Barbarian made 40 million. Menu made 41 million. Like,
and they did that on smaller
and they
budgets.
cost less.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
These are all grosses. This is not net. So if those movies are netting out, then yeah, I think you'll see.
Well, what were their budgets? Wait,
I don't know what their budgets were. I didn't do a budget analysis, but I have to assume that if you're Sonic the Hedgehog and you're not grossing at least 200 million, then if you're 150 million to make, then maybe Everything Everywhere All at Once is a more profitable movie for you. I don't know.
James Cameron made a deal with Sony that if he ever releases a movie that's not the top grossing film of all time, he has to give them his pancreas.
It's pancreas?
Yeah, he has to have it cut out of his body, and it goes up on. I made that up, obviously.
I thought this was like some real? Insane, weird, like thing that he said in an interview or something. I didn't think it was actually going to happen, but
you know, gullible's not in the dictionary. So yeah, I don't know. I just like I guess in summation, not for me, competently made, well-made film, definitely going to find an audience. People are going to love this movie. I don't think it needed to be a D&D movie. I don't think that being a D&D movie, like, I don't think that the lip service paid to D&D does anything for the story. It just is an excuse. Like, it's a fairly hollow excuse to have a built-in audience, right? And I think that that's probably the place where this movie falls the most flat. Like, there are D&D characters like Strahd and you know, I'm trying to think of like a few other, I don't know. I never really played any pre-made campaign settings. The only two that are coming to mind is the Lady of Pain and Strahd. But like, you didn't really use them in this movie other than the Red Wizards of Thay. I think they're like built-in characters and like their head dude. I
guess too, like, I read somewhere that the magician's grandfather is like a well-known D&D character.
Is? Okay. I would assume that the fat dragon was too. Like, you wouldn't just like.
Yeah, that's true. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. So like, they're not, but like the thing about the Marvel movies is like, sure, they have, like, a great thing about them is that they have this automatic audience of comics fans, right? Like, that's why they started doing that. But also, if you can't make a Marvel movie without making a Marvel movie. Like, you have to use the Marvel characters if you're going to do that, right? Like, they're necessary. They're not just like, it's not just like an artificial, like, let's slap an IP on top of it so that we get that IP's audience. Like, you're making the IP into the movie. I don't really feel like that's what happened here. I kind of feel like this is a fantasy movie. Can we make it a D&D movie? Yeah, that's cool. And then we can, now I want to say workflow wise, I don't think that's what happened. I just don't think that there's anything inherent to this movie's plot that is dependent or setting or anything that needed to be a D&D movie. And I think that tenuous connection in some way that I might not be able to, that might be somewhat intangible, weakens the film.
I can't speak to that, not being a D&D game fan, but do you think, do most people play without these settings, or do most people play within these settings, therefore would like to see them portrayed?
So we didn't have the internet like that we do now. Like there was no, like the idea that you could play D&D over the internet with your friends was like some fantastical science fiction concept when I was a kid. So I played D&D with the people I knew in high school. Right. There's so because my camera gets routed through OBS, someone just followed me on Twitch, and so an alert showed up on my camera. So that's baked into the show now. So lucky you're semi-famous. I don't know, in a weird small circle. So I don't know. So what I was gonna say was though, is that like growing up, I can tell you, I don't know anybody who used inbuilt campaign settings, and if we did, it was like, a pre-gen. Like I remember somebody was gonna we're gonna run the Tomb of Elemental Evil, which is like a specific adventure. Right.
But you weren't communicating with other players and how they played necessarily.
No. And I think that now a lot of people play Forgotten Realms. I think a lot of people play Forgotten Realms. Mm-hmm. And I think that is probably, I think that's what people are doing. And I don't know that it even occurs to people that they don't have to, which kind of bums me out. I saw like a tweet a while ago, or maybe it was a TikTok, and it was like a younger person who has discovered D&D, because that's great. So many young people are playing D&D. And I think she was complaining that like, it's very frustrating because so many of these old dudes have been playing D&D for so long, and they don't realize that we haven't had the time to learn the lore, and they just talk over our heads. Like they don't have any allowance for people to learn it.
Sure. They've had decades to wrap their heads around this stuff.
Yeah. But I replied, I was like, but there is no lore. You're doing it wrong. There's no lore. You just make up the lore. We don't have the lore memorized. There's no lore.
But if they're coming to it and there's people, but you know how people get with like, oh, you don't know what that is. Like if you're coming to it and people are like purposefully talking over your head to show you their knowledge, like that would suck.
Well, one, yes, that would suck, but I don't think.
You don't think that's what's happening?
No, I don't. I don't think so. I mean, I
don't know. I think people really like to tell you what they know at any opportunity they can.
I mean, there are definitely nerds who are kind of like that, but I also don't think that this person was at those tables. This is about online discussions.
Okay. Yeah.
And I think that I don't know. And I can't imagine elder D&Dsmans who are invested in the flavor text, because for us, that's what it was. You open up, if you ever played Magic the Gathering, there's stuff on the cards called the flavor text, and they allude to a story, but there's no story. It'd be like you'd play like, I'm trying to remember one, but like, Golden's Fen or something like that. It's like, it's a green card and it's like somebody's house. And then there'd be like a quote about it, like, in Golden's Fen, they make a rare tea or something like that. Like that many a traveler has enjoyed, but it's meaningless. It's just like, it just evokes a thing. You open up the Monstrous manual and you look up, Knoll, and it tells you that Knolls have this stat block. This is what they can do. And then there's a couple pages explaining how, like, well, actually Knolls are demons that are in the service of Orcus, and then they corrupt and take the bodies of these hyenas, and then they corrupt them into like a bipedal form, and that they're in pain all the time. But like all of that is just flavor text. Like that doesn't matter to anybody's campaign at all, except for the person who wrote the Monstrous Manual. The only part you care about when you're running D&D is the numbers. And then you could take that stat block, and it's not even a hyena man. It's whatever you decide it is for your game, because that stat block is the only part of that character that's like unique and important.
That matters. Right.
Right. And that's the way we all played D&D, like growing up. That was it. And I don't know anybody who ever approached, I've never been at a table with somebody who approached the game in a different way. Mm-hmm. So that's why I was like, it was so confusing. I was like,
it was like saying true to these manuals.
Yeah, it's not, to me, it was like, it's not that you don't know the lore. I think that people are kind of confused by the fact that you're investing yourself in this lore. That was my read on it. I don't know. And I was just like, Yeah, it's weird. Why are you doing that? Like,
Because it's fun. People like to do that. People like to be told stories. Yeah.
well, I think too, and I saw somewhere else, is that like the disconnect is that a lot of people, like my generation of old dudes, came to D&D by way of another old dude, a nerd, who was like, "Hey man, I got these dice. You want to play D&D? Oh, what's that? Let me show you." And then you go after school and you play D&D, and you're like, "Holy shit, my mind is blown. Let's do that again." Whereas a
Yeah.
lot of other, like the new gen, particularly the ladies who have gotten into the game, they come from fan fiction. They come from writing fan fiction, reading fan fiction, and fan fiction.
Right. Well, and I would imagine a lot
Tumblrs
of
and blogs, and like they have a very different attitude about all of
right.
this stuff.
A lot of people have probably been watching D&D games for years before they ever
And
try and play it.
Now that's the
Yeah.
thing. It was not a thing when I was a kid. It was nowhere.
That makes sense.
And I've said this before too, and I think that Matt Mercer does a ton, and the whole crew, they deserve a ton of credit for normalizing D&D. Because again, when I was a kid, being a nerd meant you get your ass kicked. That's what it meant. It didn't mean like, that's the thing that bugs me. As an old guy, nerd now seems to mean person who enjoys pop culture, which is like, yes, that's all of you. That's everybody. Back then it just meant, no, I get my ass kicked a lot. And then I have to get into these weird hobbies because I'm not allowed to show my face elsewhere.
Yeah.
It was the other way around it happened. But
Well, I think you only had your social circles at school when you were younger, and now people can find each other. They don't have to be popular at school. They can go home and be popular with their friends on the internet. And that's great. I actually think that's a great thing about the
I think it's a great thing too. But I digress. I just always want to give a shout out to Vin Diesel, because when I was a kid, Vin Diesel, who is like this jacked, buff, mainstream action movie star at the time, coming out on
still
Conan,
is Fast and the Furious. Yeah.
Right. Going on Conan O'Brien and talking about the character he played in D&D for like 30 years to get up to 20th level, and Conan O'Brien kind of making fun of him for it a little bit, and Vin Diesel just being like, "That's right, man. That's right. D&D like saved my life." And like that really did a lot for all of us to normalize D&D when I was playing D&D. So people forget Vin. People don't be forgetting Vin Diesel.
I don't think people do. People, someone was making the point that Michelle Rodriguez, who's in this movie, who's co-stars with Vin Diesel in the Fast and the Furious franchise, has become a big fan of D&D because of Vin Diesel. Like she started playing. So they were asking, someone put up the question of who in the cast actually like is the biggest D&D fan. And I guess Sophia Lillis was the biggest fan. She's the character with the horns.
Of course she is.
Second to her was Michelle Rodriguez. And it sounded like they had all done a table, like they had all played a game together.
Yes.
Because they said Sophia Lillis was like the rock star player, but Michelle Rodriguez definitely knew her way around the game.
So Vin is an evangelist for the community at large of D&D.
That's what I hear.
But he also wrote the foreword to a big coffee table book that I had a copy of. I moved so many times. I don't know what happened to it. It was called 20 Years of Adventure. It was the 20th anniversary of the D&D game coming out.
Yeah.
But do you know who else he taught to play D&D? And I think I love Michelle, but this is the bigger one.
Sure. Who?
Mr. Vin Diesel was in a little film called The Chronicles of Riddick, a follow-up to Pitch Black, the movie in which he played Riddick. And on the set of that, he taught Judi Dench to play D&D, and she fell in love with it and now runs games for her grandkids, she says.
Oh, God, I love that. That's wonderful.
I think that's awesome.
I don't think there's any better way to possibly end this episode.
I mean, we should probably have I talked about D&D for a long time. You liked this movie. I thought it was fine. I'm just not the audience for it.
I'm with you. Like, it's not a masterpiece. It's not a movie I'm going to be like dying to show my kids someday. Like it doesn't fall in any of those categories. But Friday night at the movie theater, some popcorn, perfectly good way to spend an evening for me.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. Like if I wanted to introduce my kids to a movie that felt like D&D to me, I would probably reach for the movies that we watched that would inspire our games before we played D&D, like Conan the Barbarian, for example, and stuff like that. Yeah. That like the game we built our games from. Those were the D&D movies for us. You know, Krull.
Just fantasy films that aren't trying to be franchises. They just exist to exist.
And I do want to say, because I'm hoping that there's some real nerds out there listening, I just want to talk about Chronicles of Riddick for 1 second. I just have a fan theory, knowing that Vin Diesel is a giant nerd who plays Warhammer 40K as well. Chronicles of Riddick, I think, is the closest thing you're ever going to get to a 40K movie. Riddick is a Primarch who discovers his legion and takes command of it by the end of the movie. The guy's been to the Underverse and he got all special powers because he's like dead inside now. Come on. If that's not a 40K. Dude, they have psychers. They have astropaths that communicate. They use psychic people to communicate over space and stuff like that in that movie, especially in the director's cut. That's a 40K movie. That's a 40K movie. That's my fan theory.
I understood the words psychic and movie and director's cut.
Yep. I said psycher, so you didn't hear me, but psychic. Yeah, sure.
Movie, director's cut.
I think this was an episode of Midnight Local. I don't know if it's in there. I think it was all over the place. There wasn't a lot for me to say about this movie. I didn't
think we were all, I thought we got to it. I thought we were in it for a while.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a D&D episode, an episode about a movie and the concept of D&D, but that's what we're doing over here.
We're doing that. Yeah, that's true. Off topic is our brand at this point. It should be.
It's not even off topic. It's just expanding the topic. I watched so many trying to get into this movie today. I watched so many reviews of and then there was this scene, and then this is funny, and then this is clever, and this is this. And it's like, that's fine. You don't need to tell someone to tell you it's okay to go see a movie. I would hope that people who listen to this podcast either want to see a movie after we've talked to it or saw it and feel like this is an expanded conversation on this movie and not just bullet points of it passes the critic test or it doesn't.
I do have a couple more movie thoughts that I feel like people are going to call me out on if I don't mention them.
Okay, go ahead. Don't get called out.
One, I do think that the movie did a really good job of establishing stakes. I couldn't believe how hardcore this movie went with, no, I'm just taking your daughter. I was like, holy shit, that's fucked up, man.
And I'm going to teach her that you abandon her. And that's hard.
That was deep. And then the other one is that a lot of the nerds were upset at the trailer and in the movie that she turns into an owl bear, because you can't really do that if you're a druid. I don't know. I never played a fucking druid, so I don't know. I don't give a shit either. And then the other one, my pet peeve though, and again, I never played a druid. I'm sorry, I never played a bard, right? But our main character is a bard. I never played one. I've never been at a table with one that I know of. I do know that way back in olden times in AD&D, bard was an extremely rare class because of the requirements you had to establish in character creation to be one. And also they do serious magic. They do magic. They are sorcerers, just like that sorcerer character is, in a more specific way. In this movie, I don't think we ever, and I don't know how they're run in 5th edition, but I know they do magic. I don't think we ever once see him do magic.
No, but he's kind of written off being a bard, no?
No.
He throws his book into the fire after his wife dies and he's abandoned.
No. That's the organization he was a member of, the secret spy guys. I forget their names.
Oh, okay.
He is a bard. That's what he is. But unless he's a thief unless he's just a rogue who happens to play the lute, maybe he's not a bard at all. That would explain some of that. But then you never see him do any roguery either.
No, I've heard him described that way, so I'm just misremembering how that functions.
No, I think that probably also too is that exactly. That's you wouldn't. That's a connection that was probably lost on you that the movie didn't explain clear enough because it was relying on D&D nerds understanding the difference between those two things. Anyway, now we're all done for shores. Now I think it was an episode. Now I'm good.
That 3 minutes.
Sorry. I just had to get that out.
Changes everything.
Well, the bard thing is a thing that was on my mind. I did want to give the movie credit where it was due. And then the owlbear I wanted to acknowledge because I'm worried that every fucking comment is going to be about this stupid owlbear thing. And I couldn't give a shit if she turned into whatever. Doesn't bother me.
I think that's the type of stuff that the people online who are saying they're starting games, saying these old people like holding we don't know all the lore yet, and you've had years to learn it. It's that type of stuff.
No, it's not lore.
That
That's a
probably
rule. That's just right there. It tells you what you can turn into.
Okay, so you just cannot. You can't make that mistake.
You can't. Yeah, I mean, if you're playing a druid, you can't make. Now it's funny. They have rules that they're testing right now that would allow you to turn into an owlbear. They're play testing those, and I think that they have to match the film because everybody's going to want to do it. Yeah,
exactly. This is like, I mean, if this is a big commercial for D&D, then you know what's going to happen next.
Yeah, druids can wild shape into animals. They can't wild shape into monstrous creatures, and an owlbear is a monstrous creature. So
cool.
I don't know. I don't make the rules.
Them's the rules.
That's the rules.
Them's the rules. So we never know how to sign off these things. It's up to say.
Bye.
We have a TikTok now. If you made it to the end of the episode, go find us on TikTok.
All right, let's find out in a week or two if this whole remote recording thing is like a viable way of doing business. I don't know. It could work.
All the podcasters do it, Greg.
Yeah, well, if all the podcasters jumped off a bridge, I'm not doing that.
It depends. Is it like I don't know. I'd have to think about it. Does that bridge offer you freedom of time and 2 hours of commute time to your life every day?
No, man, it just offers you a compressed spine and possible paraplegia. I mean, like, oh, you're not talking about a real bridge. I'm talking about a real bridge.
No. All right. Well, special thanks to Studio 71, who's helping us put this podcast together.
Annie Villalobos, our producer as well.
And Heather Vaughn, who did our artwork.
You'll find Midnight Local. If you want to watch it, it's over there on YouTube at youtube.com/Midnight Local, a very powerful URL. They're not handing those out anymore. Or over at anywhere you get your podcasts. So go get it. Get it. Put it in your ears. Subscribe now.
Well, and if you're listening, then you've done it. So subscribe.
Supplies are running out. Get them before they're gone.
Bye.
All right. Bye.